Again,
What's up, dude?
big week.
Super big week. 10 episodes in the making.
Yep. 10 full episodes in which you have managed not to get yourself fired.
That is true. I'm holding out. My under over was 11. So unless something goes terribly wrong, what could go wrong? I think I'm going to make it there. Everybody's going to cash in Vegas.
Well, we'll have the evaluation at 15.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, this is just the prelim.
I already booked all my binging and drinking benders for the 12 to 15 window.
So that's all refundable.
It was really poor planning on my part, but well, I'm sure it'll work out fine.
Yeah. 10 episodes. I'm excited. I can't believe we made it this. I can believe we made it far.
Yeah, no, I can too. I mean, if people only saw that it was actually 300 hours of recording and work that goes into it and the sweat to get down to 10 episodes that it is.
Yeah, shockingly harder than it appears to be.
Right. Well, we're like 10 episoders now, so we may kind of make it look easy.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's just a breeze.
People don't know.
Nope.
If it's your first episode, you might get hazed. Like you might have to sit on a ladder. Can you get it out? I think
you can't even say it. Just for anyone who is listening, and in case it ends up in there, a friend of ours was running sound at
Jerry Wade ran sound for this upcoming episode, and poor Jerry, he was like, "Let me just grab a chair real quick." We said, "Great, let's get going." He came back, we did the whole interview, and it was not until afterwards that we realized that they had moved the chair provisions. So and so poor
an hour.
Yes, poor Jerry, who is a god among men, because he did not flinch, and he basically did a wall sit on a ladder for an hour 15, the 6 hours that it took us to record this.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
So he earned his keep that day.
He did.
Even though we weren't paying him, and I don't know that he got any real tangible benefit out of being there, but his thighs did though.
Sure did. I could tell when he stood up.
Do you think this is 10 times harder because you're trying to like not make noise?
Absolutely. I can't believe you didn't grunt too. All right.
Yes.
So clearly we have not gotten
Yes.
more professional by any means.
I don't see that ship. I don't see the light at the end of that tunnel coming.
No, we haven't gotten smarter.
No,
nothing's been absorbed.
Certainly not. But we have had some smart people on. I don't know what they're doing talking to us, but man,
They're really lifting us up.
Yeah, seriously.
But jokes aside, bottom line in all of this is that I'm excited to do this. I think it's been really fun, and I love having someone as equally as excited to share this with.
Yes, absolutely, dude. It's been a great. Thank you so much for asking me. It's I was hesitant to see if it was going to be a thing, and then like it kind of seemed like it could be a thing, and now it seems like a thing, and so I'm very, very appreciative of the invite, and hopefully we'll continue to turn in fairly mediocre work.
Yes, at best.
That's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll over-index into like marginally good, but
it depends on the guest.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but you'll know it when it does, though.
See,
because then I'm out.
Then you're fired, and Jerry's taking over.
That's true. Good point. He's way smarter than I am. So,
welcome to Native Tongues. This week on the pod, we've got a staple from the early aughts. If you existed and had two ears during this time, you know that the song Teenage Dirtbag was inescapable. If for some reason you've never heard it, press pause and go listen right now. It was constantly on the radio, heard in TV and movies such as Dawson's Creek, Loser, The Hills, and even numerous shows today. It went triple platinum in Australia and quadruple platinum in the UK before even catching on in the US. And the rest of the album was also front-to-back infectious pop rock. Since then, they've released 5 albums and numerous renditions of their classic hit. We caught them in the middle of a very long Australian and US tour and had a chance to sit down and talk at the Manor Mill in Moncton, Maryland, which is a restored 1700s grist mill now used as an intimate concert venue and art space. This was an incredibly entertaining hour. We hope you enjoy it. Let's welcome Brendan B. Brown of the band Wheatus.
Yeah, seriously. My God.
You're on like a major tour right now, right?
Yeah. Well, by the end of this year, it's looking like we'll be pushing 200 shows or something.
Oh my God.
So it's getting up there.
You just got back from Australia too,
Yeah,
right?
I just got back from Australia. I did.
That was like a week ago. And
No, it was about 72 hours ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I saw the last show. I think it was like the 24th.
Well, but then you fly for, 20 hours and then you get.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. Or after the morning after you do.
Do you just get antsy to where you can't be in a
No,
place?
I get pretty zen about it.
Okay.
Yeah. I just kind of, I pretend like I'm surviving the apocalypse or something. I can put myself in that headspace. Like, what would you do if you absolutely fucking had to go find a deer and eat it right now?
Right. Okay.
That kind of mentality. It's like,
wow.
Well, if your headset's there, then look, it's a bagel place. Everything's fine.
That's good. That's good. It's actually you're better. You're in a better spot than that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
you don't have to hunt and gather. So a full tour of Australia. You were with
Art Alexakis from Everclear.
Yeah. I really like them. They're great.
Me too. One of my favorite songwriters of all time.
Were you friends with them ahead of time?
No. Well, so this is a little bit of a meandering story, but he invited us to go on tour with them in 2020. Of course, that didn't happen. So,
well, how come?
Do you have other plans?
We didn't feel like it. We just changed our minds. But the following year, he was the first out of the gate for people who thought it was right to go back and get back to work.
Okay.
So he took us out with Hoobastank and Living Color.
Oh, no way.
In America, yeah. And it was like I watched Living Color every night.
Yeah.
I watched all
that
the
would have
bands
been real
every
fun.
night.
Is it Vernon Reed? Is he still burning?
Yeah,
still
man.
shredding? Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, they have to invent a new word for what he does. It's not shredding. It's like atomizing.
Right. Okay. Right.
He's so fast. He's so fast.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Just one of my favorites.
Yeah, and we got real lucky with that because his timing was such that Art's timing. We figured out where all the valleys were in the waves of the infection because it was still happening.
Okay,
still having waves coming back. So we toured for June and July, and then we took August off, and then it peaked in August, and then we hit the road again in September with him, and we got off the road sometime mid-October, and then it peaked in November again. Like it was, he was like
just play it by ear
between
tour.
the raindrops.
I feel like there's like some sort of Santa Monica surfing analogy in
Very
there
much
that I
so.
can't quite grab.
Art has an autoimmune disease. He has MS.
Oh,
and
okay.
I did not know that. It's a different story. It's like you can't get him sick. No one can get him sick. Can't mess around with it. So we were really careful. I got one cold on that tour, and I walked around with a mask, telling everybody, I have a little cold, tested negative, but stay away from me. Don't pick up my guitar. Blah blah blah. Yeah,
you're still a pariah. Like at
of
that
course,
point, it's like,
You have to be a leper a little bit, and just like stay away and know that you can't infect people. Members of Living Color are in their 60s. And, I'm not going to be the guy who gives them the disease. No way. So it was like, we were really careful. Nobody got it. We got lucky. Like I said, Art's timing
that's great.
Like almost majestic.
That's awesome.
But I watched Art on tour in Australia push through his autoimmune and deliver these fiery singer-songwriter sets for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Answering questions, taking requests. I mean,
for how many nights?
We did 20 shows, 18 shows, something like that. It was in pushing 20, I think, in Australia.
Wow. I saw it was Nate Bargatze's like after COVID, he's like coughing in public. That's kind of done. Can't do that anymore.
That's over. Everyone looks at you like,
right. You're like, you stand there, like, get away. You.
Yeah. I know some people are real freaked out by it. I'm not. It's like that apocalypse mentality. Right. Like, you're like, well, somebody's going to give us the zombie disease eventually.
Right.
Just make sure you're.
I had a good run.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I got to make music. I lived in the time before fascism took over, and I think I'm okay.
Right.
Just before.
Still surviving.
Yeah.
Still
on the brink.
Yes.
How was the reception in Australia?
Awesome.
By the way. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. It was so chill. I'm comparing it to last night. We played our first show of this tour.
Mm-hmm.
I was with Art playing these super chill, like I said, singer-songwriters, Q&A kind of vibes, and
Cool.
and taking requests and taking it slow and easy and singing sort of softly. Last night in Maryland, no, rather in Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware, they wanted the rock show, and they didn't care that it was acoustic.
Okay.
You know, it was close to sold out, and was just like, all these kids just wanted, they're like calling out these really heavy songs. And I'm like, I only have an acoustic guitar here.
Oh my gosh.
They're like, we don't care.
Great.
So I just, I just cranking the strings, like,
cool.
you know, playing harder.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it was fun. It turned out great, but I was not ready for that. This seems a bit more chill tonight. This is like,
I'm really curious to see what kind of crowd shows up here.
right.
So that was one of my questions. This place is a really intimate venue, and it's like off the beaten track too. I mean, I kind of expected you to show up somewhere in DC, 930 Club or something.
No, we told our agent Alex that we wanted to go to Nooks and Crannies.
Oh, so
You
my
found
question
it.
was, how intentional was this?
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah, and
Okay.
he calls this tour his magnum opus.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah, in the booking, because it's the lower 48 states, all of them.
Okay.
And he tried to find places where it would really matter what we were doing in a singer-songwriter context, right?
Yeah.
Like either because it's an art space, like it was a youthful art space last night, and they wanted the rock show, but they were still calling out songs and asking questions and being super interactive, almost like oppressively interactive. and then the other version of it, which is this sort of fireside chat kind of vibe for tonight, you know.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's going to be leaning toward that, but maybe a mix. I just don't know who's going to come out here.
I don't know. So for both of our listeners, we're in a 1700s grist mill that has been converted, and it's awesome with the crazy wood beams everywhere in a space that is just amazing.
Yeah.
So, very intimate.
We're New Yorkers. I live in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And I've lived in New York City since I was in my 20s, early 20s, and grew up in the shadow of the city my whole life, coming in and out. And this is the first ultra rural place that I have ever said to myself, I would move here.
Yeah.
Oh.
I would move here. Because as a New York City person, you know, if I'm away from it too long, they're going to find me on the side of the river like E.T. surrounded by raccoons. So I have to avoid that. And in this place, I didn't have that feeling. I was like, yeah, I want to make roast chicken here with rosemary and next to the fire or something. You know, like that's what it felt like.
Yeah. Well,
So we live like suburbs, a little closer to Baltimore, but I actually grew up out here. My family still
Did you
lives out
fly
this way.
fish?
No, my dad is an avid fly fisher.
Really?
And has been for like 40 years. And he tried and it just didn't click with
didn't
me.
stick, yeah. See, I got my dad into fly fishing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see a place like this, and my dad passed away in August, and I see a place
sorry.
like this, and I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
And I'm like, oof, man, this would be.
The Gunpowder River.
Yeah.
brought it back.
Go hit it. I'm sure someone around here has a pair of waders you can
It's
borrow.
that'd be really good for my voice.
Nothing better to do than stand in the freezing
You
water.
sound like you've been standing in the river all day. Well,
Yeah.
funny
A little
that.
cold.
When we got out of our cars, I walked over. I was like, "Is that the river raging like next
Yeah,
to
it's
it? Right here, right
kicking
next to the
down there,
mill.
yeah.
It's killer."
Yeah,
honking.
especially with the past day. So this was like serendipitous. A couple months ago, I had a playlist on that was just, it was like one of those Apple playlists, and Teenage Dirtbag popped up on it, and I was jamming out to it, and I was like, oh, I haven't listened to this album in so long, and I pulled up the album and listened start to finish and was like, I love this album. I forgot how good it was. I wonder what these guys are still doing now. And then I looked up and see that you're coming 15 minutes from where I'm living at
Whoa,
the
that's
Manor
weird.
Mill out in
Yeah,
the woods. And
that's
I was
weird.
like, that can't be right. That's got to be a misprint.
Yeah. Well, I'm
great.
glad it happened. That's kind of strange. I have a lot of feelings about that record. It's a very angry album.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's sort of
punchy.
It's sort of witty and or I would say wry rather. It's kind of like sort of aggressive.
Mhm.
And I remember because we just re-recorded it, right? We did it
Right.
over
Mhm.
from scratch because the label lost the masters. It seems like they don't exist anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Over the years, we never had any multi-track licensing come through. Lots of licensing for the stereo track.
Yeah.
but nothing that required the multi-track. And we were always like, why do the multi-track licenses always die on the vine? They never seem to get finished. And I started to suspect that maybe it's because those masters were never properly stored, or they weren't. I gave 5 copies of the record on multi-track to the label, and I never got any back.
Were those the ones tracked in your house?
Yeah.
That's wild.
So the short story is we got nervous that they didn't exist anymore and started to record it over again. And that process started in 2014 and was really forensic, because I had to go to the last sort of penultimate set of masters that existed. I still had.
Yeah.
But they're incomplete, unsuitable for delivery to the label. There's like missing a lot of the vocals and some guitars and percussion.
Right.
But on those tapes were the click tracks, the tempo grids, the drums, and the bass, and a lot of guitars. So enough of the fundamentals to find out where we were and start recreating it. And so in 2014, I brought those tapes to a place called Dream Hire in New York, and they built this completely obsolete system out of the scrap heap
To
that
replicate.
they had to dump it onto Pro Tools.
Oh, wow.
Right. So they were pulling machines out of the garbage. They actually were doing that to make this happen. And they pulled this guy named Mark, who since has passed on, but he was able to get everything from those penultimate set to Pro Tools.
Wow.
And then we started re-recording using the same framework.
Yeah, I didn't recognize when I was younger and listening to the album how complex it is, like how many different parts, vocal tracks and various other instruments.
Yeah.
But listening to it now, there's a lot going on. So that must have been tedious.
Yeah. Back then, bands were supposed to be 3 pieces.
Right.
Blink 182 and
Presidents.
and Green Day and Presidents, United States of America, and Primus. And I my favorite band is a 3-piece Rush.
Yeah.
But we were a 4. When we had this eclectic New York percussionist, multi-instrumentalist guy involved, who was my co-producer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we produced the tracks more than a first album typically you would see. And we got to a point, I started recording that album in 96 or 95, 96, and we did it over again three times before we got a record deal. So we had recorded it several versions,
In the same space? Or are you going back like...
So there was one version, 96, we finished. Then we got through to 98 and finished another one. Then in the middle of 99, we were in the middle of the 3rd version when we got signed.
Okay.
And we were only kind of giving it away on discs at shows in New York.
The same lineup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing we were doing is we were sort of woodshedding the record, how it was going to sound. I had this concept that I wanted the verses to feel like they were Paul Simon and James Taylor and Indigo Girls, and then the choruses would explode into Metallica and Rush and AC/DC and those kind of influences, all the while maintaining a rhythmic establishment that was way more late 80s, early 90s New York hip hop, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, the stuff that it was on the mixtapes that I got in high school.
Yeah.
So, walking into a studio in the 90s in New York and telling a producer that you want that hybrid, they're going to kick your ass out of there, right? They're going to be like, get out of here, man.
Just
like,
keep it
what
simple.
Are you talking about? Yeah. So we went through the trouble of learning how to do it ourselves instead, which took the better part of 3 years,
Wow.
And by the 3rd year, we had this, Sony was interested, Columbia Records signed us, and they said, we're putting your demo out, which was the 3rd version. And we were like, no.
Oh.
Would give us $50,000 in 3 weeks and see if we can do a better job, because we still had not reached that point where we had all the microphones that we wanted and the gear that we wanted. It was popsicle sticks and glue to that point,
Right.
And so we spent $50,000 getting some good EQs and compressors and mics, and we did it at my mother's house in February of 2000.
Awesome.
And that's the record,
Really?
But there are 3 songs on that first record that are from the 3rd version, and that's Leroy,
Okay.
Sunshine, and Wannabe Gangster. Those 3 we did not finish. The others were redone. So, yeah.
Wow. That had to be a steep learning curve, because the album sounds good.
Thanks.
Sounds very good.
It was mixed by a guy named Dave Thoner, who I picked him from the list because he had an AC/DC credit. He had done For Those About to Rock.
Okay.
And also had done John Waite's Missing You.
Oh,
He mixed that song.
Yeah,
and I was like, that right there, that's Teenage Dirtbag.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, good analogy.
Those
or good
are
combination.
Yeah, so And so we went with him, and he hit it out of the park. Did a great job.
Yeah.
When I put it back on a couple months ago, it was like the first note took me back to a time and place.
Yeah.
It came out in 2000 or 2001. Is that right?
It came out in the summer of 2000. The official release date for the album, for our first album, is August 18th, 2000.
It felt so strongly like a mid-90s pop rock album. I'm trying to think of how to define this. Like something that would have showed up at... Do you ever play the HF Festival?
No.
Oh, it was a big music festival here at that time.
Lollapalooza kind of.
Local.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but something in the vein of the bands that were hot at that time, like Letters to Cleo or Fountains of Wayne or...
Fountains of Wayne we were influenced by.
Yep.
I can tell. You have the same really clean, like pop rock writing sensibilities.
Yeah. R.I.P. Adam Schlesinger. But the record that I loved was the one with Radiation Vibe on it.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Utopia Parkway? Is that the one?
Think so.
It's not Welcome Interstate Managers. That's the one with the big hit on it, I think.
Right.
But they had this...
Stacey's mom.
Stacey's mom was a big
yeah. That's the big
They
hit.
talk about a cool career. They established themselves as this like super credible like indie rock band in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then they had a humongous worldwide pop punk hit that's on all of these like I hate that term. That term is so bizarre, but
it's okay. I love pop punk.
Yeah. No, I like a lot of that music a lot.
Yeah.
Like if Fat Lip comes on, I'm jumping.
Yeah.
There's no avoiding it. I love pop punk music. But we didn't really try to make a pop punk record.
I don't think it comes across that way.
Yeah, it doesn't feel but we were stuck in there with it. Teenage Dirtbag is laconic. It's like slow. It has a sort of a hip hop kind of tempo.
Absolutely.
Nothing like Orange County pop punk stuff. So we were surprised to be stuck in that. And I'm pretty sure Fountains of Wayne were as well, having come from where they came from.
I was going to say, was there like a similar trajectory? Although yours was earlier. I mean, that was a big hit. Did it hit that quick earlier? Well, did it take time to get into like movies and shows?
It's important to remember that Teenage Dirtbag was not a hit in America when it came out.
Oh, no?
No.
It's funny. I had heard that, but I'm like, I don't know. I heard it a lot. Let's put it that way. I heard it a lot in America in the 2000s.
So by the numbers, we were called into the office the week after our first sales week. And we were told that the label was disappointed because we failed to break the psychological barrier of 20,000 records. And I said, how many did we do? And they were like 19,507.
Get the hell out of here.
And I was like,
You're like, can I go outside and make a phone call real quick?
Like Trump is calling fucking Georgia to get 11,000 votes and you can't figure out where the other
Good Lord.
But it was one of those like, we're in a multinational media corporation. I understand that now. And that the motivation to continue working the record is this psychology based on the first inkling of what it could do and nothing else. Now, obviously that was...
You can't let it just be and
you
like
can't
sort
let
of
it
grow.
breathe. You have to decide its fate in the first week.
It's granular and it's immediate.
Exactly. So an interesting paradox about that time is that we recouped on our first album after we quote unquote failed in the United States. A few months later, it went quadruple platinum in Australia. And then it did the same thing in most of the European territories in the UK and Ireland. Yeah. So we earned our money back. The 50 grand that we had spent recording at my mom's house was wiped off of the books really quickly.
Yeah.
But somehow that didn't mean we got a second record. And there's a lot of why did that.
How do you feel about that now? Like looking back.
Fortunate.
Yeah.
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 Oh, really?
We delivered the second album in the summer of on the day of the New York blackout in 2002 or 2003. I can't remember. It was one of those years in the summertime, and we're having this meeting, and they're telling us we're not doing a video, we're not paying for tour support. We were off to tour support for years at that point. We're not doing an American release. We're putting it out only in the UK, and it was just like they just read us this like list of like what they're not doing for the second album.
Why are they burying it?
I've come to realize I think that they were taunting me into saying, okay, I'll go back into the studio and make you another one. Because this is how 6-album deals worked back then. You had a 6-album deal, right?
Okay.
And they didn't want to start paying an artist on their first because that meant that you were going to be in sort of a power position. You were going to be in a position where you went to, instead of delivering records to them, you went off to tour and did things.
Right.
Right.
So in retrospect, it looks like maybe they were trying to get me to say, oh boy, I've lost the confidence of the label. I'll try and win it back. Okay. And instead, when they asked me what I thought of that, I said, I should probably get my day job back if you're not going to be putting out my records. And the guy who was in charge at the time of the meeting,
probably didn't hear that much.
He blew his stack at me. He was like, if you feel that way, you can take your fucking record and get the hell out of here. And he said it in front of my manager and my attorney. So we held him to it. And we walked with our second album out of the record label.
That's so crazy.
I will never understand why it had to go that way. And my naivete about answering the,
Had you come in shitty? Like, had you come in with an attitude?
Man, I came in like,
that?
I was so proud of the second album. I had worked so hard to try and, take them into consideration and like, what were they missing from the first album? Well, they were missing a deep pocket of radio singles. So there's way more songs on album 2 that are 3 minutes long and that are punchy and powerful. And
is that the one with Lemonade on it?
Yeah, Lemonade and
really
the song that I wrote When You Dissed Me and The Deck and Freak On and Anyway. Those were all like, amongst the A&R at the label, there was confusion about which single they wanted to go with first because they thought they were all pretty strong.
Okay.
And then the upper management was like, we're not even putting it out. So it was this like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Right.
And they didn't see my answer coming. I should probably get a day job because I was being honest. I was just being scared.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
I'm just a guy.
Right.
That power dynamic is so bizarre that how it used to be weighed, and obviously it still is to a degree, but with the advent of streaming services, it's a little different now. The sense that
label can lose an artist now.
Yeah.
Right. A distributor is the one that holds the power. That shouldn't be. It should be the artist, the creator, and instead they're told,
I'll go one further. It should be people, right? People who pay attention to music should decide, right?
Sure.
And if they're not even getting the record, how can they decide? Now, you have to remember, this was 2003. There wasn't even an iTunes yet.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right? This is prior to YouTube.
Yeah.
This was like...
Were we in Rhapsody at that point?
LimeWire.
Like LimeWire, yeah. Like
Kazaa.
you were basically like ripping everything.
It was all rips.
So, yeah.
Did you benefit from that at all?
We did. I mean, we benefited from the broadcasting of that because that's streaming, really, is what that is. Even if you can download it. Look, the thing that they never did, no foresight. I worked for a computer company in the 90s helping to manage the technicians who built virtual private networks in Times Square, in this building in Times Square. And the guys who ran that company, when they found out I was a musician, they came up and they said, did you get your digital rights all sorted away? Because CDs are software, man. And I don't think anybody knows it. And they were clued in, like in the 90s, they knew that it was, that the copyright thing was about to change, So label didn't even know what Napster was. I mean, at the time, in the turn of the century, they really didn't understand what was going on. They didn't understand that their own product was software, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, it was the confluence of ignorance that assisted us. My own ignorance about being afraid I wouldn't be able to pay my bills and saying something that would be terminal at the record label.
Right.
And also their ignorance of not understanding that I was going to be able to sell this music to people myself in a few years and wouldn't even have to sit here for this conversation.
Yeah.
Now, if you go 1996 to 2006, which is basically the dawn of like bands being able to independently distribute on TuneCore and whatever else, that disparity, somebody needs to write a book about what happened in those 10 years because that's incredible.
That's when Radiohead put out In Rainbows?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that just sort of destroyed everything.
This is going to sound nuts. I pitched making only 1 million CDs for our first album and then cutting it short and giving them away to Sony. I pitched that when of our second record, and they were like, we're going to kill you. Don't say this to anybody else ever, There's like...
Is that as an alternative after their first presentation? Were you
no,
here's an idea.
Before that. Before when we were still on terms where we thought it was going to come out.
You could actually do this.
Yeah,
right?
I kind of said
here's
that.
Here's an idea
what if we
had.
did that? What if, what if we did that? Like, what if we gave it away? And it'd be a one-time thing, sure, but we'd be the band that did it.
Right.
Another sort of naive moment.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? But
then,
In Rainbows was done that way.
Yeah. They did pretty damn well doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's got to write a book. Somebody who knows more about it than I do. Because I was only on one sort of like terrified side of the fence,
Right. Which is probably where they wanted to keep most of the artists.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
So you were in New York at the time. You had a real job.
We kept our day jobs until it was 6 months after we signed the deal.
How often were you playing shows leading up to that?
We played that summer with Joey Ramone at CBGB's.
Oh, wow.
And we Played a few more showcases. I think we went down to DC and played a DC 101 showcase. So it was starting to be weekend touring life, or asking off from work for Thursday and then doing a tour till Monday. It was starting to be like that. I had toured prior to that in another band opening for Joan Jett on the East Coast.
Oh.
So I had been on the road a little bit.
What was the band called?
Hope Factory. It was
Did you make an album?
Yeah, we were halfway through a really good record, but then the band broke up. The guy's still a friend of mine. His name's Ali Namvar. He's a genius songwriter. He really knew what he was doing. I was just a guitar player in that band, but I learned a lot. That was before Wheatus. That was in 95, 96.
Okay.
I was working on the Wheatus record, but I wasn't confident enough to front a band.
How old were you then?
21, 22.
Yeah, it's young.
22. Yeah.
It's real young.
Were you writing in high school? Were you always like?
I had the Teenage Dirtbag riff on the guitar in high school.
Okay.
I messed around with that riff for a long time. I didn't know. I hadn't written a song with it. It was just a riff.
Have you had written lyrics at all? Like at that point, just any lyrics at
Not in
anything?
high school. Not in high school. I wrote Teenage Dirtbag in 95.
Okay.
95, 96. I finished it.
So if your biopic came out, it wouldn't be that moment when you play it for the first time and you say, I think this is something.
I knew it was something, but I also knew, having been in Hope Factory and around a little bit.
You're just screwing around.
Yeah, that it was like, there was a lot more that had to happen. Like you could have a great, great song and all this other stuff had to work out. You know, that's out of your control. So,
were you from New York originally?
Yeah, I grew up on Long Island,
okay.
About 30 miles east of the city.
Okay.
And I moved to New York when I graduated college.
Yeah.
But the bands that I played in were always in the city. I never played in a Long Island band.
You were in Manhattan mostly?
Yeah, Manhattan and Brooklyn.
So did you read that book, Meet Me in the Bathroom?
There's a film I have missed, and I haven't read the book.
I haven't watched the film yet.
But I saw the trailer for the movie, and I had known about the book, and I felt like I was a little traumatized by it. Like this is right. You understand that happened a year after we came through the New York City club system.
Oh, wow.
What part?
Like the whole thing. Like we were too early we were just ahead of that stuff and different enough. Those sort of tastemaker mags from the city, they didn't like us very much. They thought we were like, alt rock or something.
Right.
So we weren't going to be indie favorites in the city.
Yeah, weren't stylish
That didn't
enough.
stop us from having a line around the corner.
Right. You're still playing.
That's cool.
But it wasn't like fashion music.
Yes, gotcha. I was just curious.
Which I love. I love the Strokes. I love the production on the records.
They're fantastic.
I think there's a song on the second album called "The End Is No End." I think it's called. It's just so good. Once it comes on, I have to everybody be quiet for a second. I need to finish this.
Just they have endless riffs that I just drool over.
Yeah, killer.
Yeah. But I guess the question was, the music scene was shifting between Manhattan and Brooklyn, and it was like, which place is cool at the time? So where did you end up?
Manhattan.
Okay.
We were New York City. We bounced between the Luna Lounge and the Mercury Lounge, those two places.
Okay.
We just made sure that we played sparsely. Like we did shows once every 2.5 months. And we also made sure that it was a weekend, and we also made sure that there was an after party that we could kind of set up and have people knew what their night was going to be like. Yeah. Because there's a lot of competition in New York City for like nightlife stuff. It doesn't matter. You could be the fucking Beatles and they won't, like, people will be like, well, I'm going to Centro Fly. Right. So it was a kind of an interesting time. I was lucky enough to know a party promoter, a guy who had worked with Joan Jett. A guy named John Lennon, believe it or not. It was his family name, no association. And he was instrumental in setting up nights for us. So we booked the club, Mercury Lounge or Luna Lounge, and then he booked the after party, and we promoted it all together.
Nice. Did you cross paths or play with anyone else that time who ended up breaking out too?
That's a good question. Probably. But New York City club shows, when you're a nobody band, are so hectic. You barely get to be there. You're worrying about your car getting broken into, which it is, you know,
that happens,
or towed, and you just like, it's like a lot of hassle. So you can focus on the playing a show, trying to be good,
not taking in the surroundings.
Yeah,
just get through.
Yeah.
So back on Long Island, you were screwing around playing guitar. Were you playing anything by yourself? Like any solo?
Do you mean
shows?
before the
Wheatus? Let's say high school, because you moved out after high school?
Interesting. So I went to an all-boys Catholic school that was an hour and a half away from my house.
Oh.
Did you take a train?
Yeah, I took the train. Yeah, I commuted an hour and a half each way. So it was 3 hours on the train every day toward the city.
Oh, and that's before cell phones, before any of
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
See ya. Hope you get
A lot
home.
of quiet time.
Before anyone cared if a construction worker was beating the shit out of a teenager on the train. Yeah.
Did that happen?
Oh yeah, man, they hated us.
Really?
We were wearing ties. They thought we were rich kids. It was a fallacy though, because the majority of people who sent their kids to this school were public servants, cops, firemen, and military and stuff like that. So it wasn't rich kid school. It was just like a strict.
Okay.
And I hated it. I didn't want to go. I thought it was a big waste of time. I still have dreams where I'm in like my sophomore year and I stand up and I'm like, I know what I'm going to do with my life. I don't need this. Okay, I'm getting out of here now.
We're good. I'll see
I'm
you.
out.
Yeah.
But that'd have been nice.
But yeah, those are nice dreams. They come sometimes.
Did you start at a public high school and then they shipped you out there? Or was just,
I
that?
went to a Catholic grammar school with like 30 kids in the class, the same 30 kids for 8 years. Around the corner.
On Long Island?
Yeah, around the corner from my parents' house in Northport, Long Island. And then in 1984, when I was 10 years old, the satanic murder happened. And my parents wrote off the public schools at that point forever. So I could have gone to the public high school when I got out of that grammar school, but not after that.
That was Ricky Casso, right?
Yeah.
So your parents saw that and were like,
yeah, that's when the plans to sort of send me away from that town for high school emerged.
Yeah. That's when the satanic panic kicked off.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Yikes. All right. So suburbs, what are you listening to then?
A lot of AC/DC. That was like the first big discovery for me.
Okay.
how'd you discover him?
Oh, man. Probably seeing the poster for Highway to Hell.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
That was very illicit and sort of...
Did you combine that with the satanic ritual killing, and then your
didn't,
parents
but
were like, "Yep, nope, you're out."
So that was what the authorities were doing. They were drawing that connection and abdicating all parental responsibility, blaming Angus Young, and sending their kids away to boarding schools or whatever. It wasn't a boarding school. That one I went to was like I said, a commuter school. But it was ridiculous. There was a curfew in the town. Cops were like confiscating skateboards. Like it was like it was the dumbest, white people shit that you ever heard in your life.
Sounds like it. It was the 80s though, so it's like, a
very reactive,
more innocent, reactive
it
time.
was crap.
And
you had a moment there where you had to like decide how much you liked your music.
Was it worth it?
How much do I like AC/DC? Am I going to keep this up? Because every parent wants to know if I'm a devil worshiper.
Oh my God!
And you're just beginning to etch your musical identity.
Yeah.
Right.
And so my stubborn and sort of like, I couldn't have told you what hypocrisy was at the time verbally, but I certainly smelled it. And I was like, fuck you. Fuck all of you. I'm listening to what the fuck I'm listening to. And I started to like become a bit of a troll. Like I enjoyed the fact that parents were like scared.
Pushing it on.
Yeah,
sure.
It's like, oh, does this bother you?
That was, for me, that awakening, when I went from, so I was born in 76, but growing from Madonna, and I'll never forget my friend's brother played us a Danzig tape. Danzig 1. And granted, I grown up in the 80s, and like Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a bat, and who knows what's going on out there. So
you're a Danzig fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so I listen at a distance to Danzig.
Okay.
Right? I'm much more, like if you ask me that kind of music, I'd say Crass.
Okay.
Right?
Ooh.
However, do you think, is it true that every single Danzig song is about beating up your girlfriend's dad?
I think that's part of it. I think you have to dig a little deeper because there are other peripheral family members too. Challenge there. Sometimes it's about eating eggs. I don't know. He's a tortured soul, Glenn Danzig.
You ever see the pictures of him mowing his own lawn?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's great. There's a whole Facebook thing. It's just Danzig memes, and it's just
I haven't seen that. Does he have the widow's peak while he's doing it?
He's doing it. No,
he's wearing a Danzig shirt, mowing his own Misfits shirt.
Yeah, exactly. But that was eye opening for me, and I was like, oh yeah, this is where I need to be now, and that kind of changed everything for me. Yeah. It's funny you say about AC/DC. I was just saying to my daughter, we were skiing, and I have my AirPods. Earbuds. They're not AirPods, which reminds me that because they're not Apple. They're not. But
corporate disclosure.
Yeah, we're but we were skiing, and we're at the top of a double black diamond, and I have my music on, and she's like looking at me, and she's like, I don't know, am I going to do this? I was like, yeah, you got it. And like right then, the first chords of For Those About to Rock come on, and I'm like, you got this.
Damn.
And just shredded. It was awesome.
I try to line that up when I snowboard.
You're
Like, what's the perfect song to like just
what's this
zone
thing?
out to?
I saw AC/DC in DC, and they closed with that. And they had these giant, like 21-inch cannons that came out. And my friend's dad was waiting in the parking lot for us. And he's like, the car was shaking because it's like, shoot, boom, shoot, boom. And he's like, what was going on in there?
Best rock band of all time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Are you Bon Scott or Brian Johnson or all of the above?
I'm both.
The same?
I get down with Brian. Who Made Who's one of my favorites.
Oh my God, it's great. Maximum Overdrive?
Yeah, Maximum Overdrive's a great movie. Thunderstruck. For a long time, Maximum Overdrive, watching the film, was the only place you could hear some unreleased AC/DC because they scored it.
Yeah, we somehow keep ending up back on this topic. So many things come back to Stephen King.
That's what we do.
We both started reading all of that.
Very
way
Stephen
too
King
young.
setting, this place.
It's true. This feels like
colonial house.
Yes. Yeah. It's about to go down somewhere.
Yeah, somebody's buried out back there. You guys want to walk through the woods a little bit?
For sure. They ended up in the cider at some point.
The soil of a man's heart is stonier, Lewis.
Yeah.
So how early did you learn to play Thunderstruck?
Well, Thunderstruck was later.
Late, right? That's
Thunderstruck
late.
was 91.
How about Highway to Hell?
1991. The first.
I was just thinking of like a riff.
The first real riffage for me that I figured out on my own from AC/DC was from two records, Dirty Deeds and Let There Be Rock. Those two for me, in particular, a whole lot of Rosie, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, and Problem Child.
Okay.
Nice.
But Let There Be Rock for me was the one. I got stuck on that for a long time. Learned all the solos.
Yeah.
Like every single little lick and piece of it.
That's cool.
Trying so hard to nail the timing on Angus's solos in the title track.
Mm-hmm.
Let There Be Rock is that's a punk rock record. I was talking to Art about this a few weeks ago because we were listening to it in the dressing room before we went to play. Let There Be Rock is a punk record in its production, in its aesthetic, and the whole like the vibe of it. It's so punk, and it's 1977.
Yeah, never thought of it that way.
Right, so it's like it's just thrashed to hell. It's nasty sounding. It sounds like they recorded it in a trash can in the best way, you know? Like, and so that one was the riff for me. A whole lot of Rosie and the song, the title track. Hours and hours and hours figuring out how those riffs go.
It's funny. Like if I were asked to pin down what you were listening to at the time based off of your music, I would have leaned toward some like Cheap Trick or the Cars or stuff that's a little more pop centric.
Yeah. Well,
how'd you transition from such a heavy?
Well, at the same time, I was just as into Prince. You know, I was just as into Huey Lewis and Cyndi Lauper.
These are like all my favorites.
Yeah, some of the greatest pop records of all time came out in the first half of the 80s, I think. Jesse's Girl, Rick Springfield. Agree. And the Cars were unavoidable. If you weren't influenced by the Cars in the 80s, you didn't have a television or a radio. Like, I couldn't have avoided that if I wanted to. Dire Straits. When Money for Nothing hit MTV, that was a big moment.
It was a sea change.
Followed by Walk of Life.
Yeah.
Brothers in Arms album.
Yeah, the Brothers in Arms record.
To this day, that's one of the songs that when it comes on, I'm like, nope, got to hear this.
Yeah.
Here comes Johnny singing Oldies Goldies.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody, the guitar technique for Dirtbag is based on the figure that you see Mark Knopfler having in Money for Nothing when he's got that sort of like, looks like he's making the Surf's Up sign with his fingers.
I have watched numerous YouTube videos with him where he breaks down his like chicken picking technique.
So tricky.
And I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's
so
impossible.
tricky. It's idiosyncratic. It's of him.
Yeah.
It's of his neurological system.
Right.
It's not of yours.
No.
It's important to know that. Because I tried so hard to play that exactly like he does. And there are people on TikTok who can do it.
Sure.
But I was a swing and a miss. But what I landed on was the Dirtbag riff. That sort of
it's not a miss.
Wannabe Mark Knopfler riff.
Yeah.
Say that's a pretty solid landing.
Yeah, well, I do it. My Mark Knopfler fail is like
right.
the reason I get that sort of upstroke. Right.
Okay.
On it. That's awesome. So when you started writing lyrics, like I feel like your writing is it's polished. Obviously, the rhyme schemes are great, but it also feels very sort of unfiltered.
Yeah, it's pissed off. I was really pissed off
putting out
on
that
first
stuff,
record.
Yeah.
I regret it sometimes, honestly.
Really?
There was another version of our first album that didn't have any of that anger. It was more like shoegazy, a little bit more Sunny Day Real Estate influenced, and sort of like that. Rock, heavy rock, but a little bit more on that side. And what had happened was after the Hope Factory thing, I was involved in the production of another record. Without getting too into it, I got ripped off really hard. the people who were producing that record, after I wrote and recorded it for 9 months, took it to A&M and got $1 million deal and cut me out of it.
Wow.
Oh, yikes.
So I was in late 96, early 97 when I was like finishing songs for what would be the first Wheatus record. I turned super pissed. I was like almost like recklessly pissed off, you know?
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons there's so much vinegar on that record.
Huh. You were 21, you were saying at the time.
I was 23 when the 22 or 23 when the big ripoff happened.
Yeah. So you definitely have those points of aggression that like really drove you, that maybe pushed you in that direction. But sure. I'd say anyone who was a musician at that time that was listening to that heavy music and like rebelling, that's naturally going to come out.
Maybe, yeah.
You don't have a lot of worldview yet.
No, certainly not. And you're also unprocessed in every way from, my childhood was violent. I was in more fistfights by the time I was 9 than I could even count. Like it was a tough town.
Do you have brothers?
No, I was the oldest. But most of the kids on my block were older than me. There was tons of really hard drugs. Lots of PCP in Northport for some reason. Angel dust was everywhere.
Wow.
Well, that was the Casso thing, right? Wasn't he was supposedly got some sort of drug deal gone bad?
They had done a ton. Well, that's what they said, but those
that's what he said.
They knew each other since they were in like little league together, like kindergarten. They went to kindergarten together, and like I can't get my head around what happens to somebody where they're like, sure, I'm going to lure my old kindergarten friend into the woods and kill him. It's mysterious and super dark, and it was the guy who wrote the best tell of it is Jesse Pollack. He wrote a book for Simon & Schuster called The Acid King, which is the best document of that.
I know that book.
Yeah.
I've always been geek about true crime.
Yeah.
I think that one's been on my list that I just haven't gotten to.
Get with that. That's the best one.
Okay.
He went strictly off of the police reports. I talked to him all through the while I was writing it. I wasn't as directly. I bumped into Casso a few times when I was a kid. He once threw himself into a van that I was in with coming home from church and hissed at all of us.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a different kind of.
Yeah, I remember his breath. But he's just a lost kid, right? He's been kicked out of his house a bunch of times, and it was an ugly place. Northport in the 70s and 80s was very much latchkey kids, right? Both parents worked.
Yep.
No one was ever home.
What's the industry there? Is there like
at the time it was a lobster town on the decline.
Oh wow, okay.
70s fisheries in New York were very restricted, and there's a lot of out of work fishermen. Now it's this sort of renovated, gentrified Victorian seaside,
Long Island on the coast,
Long Islander thing. But back then it was a working class town. And it was just violent. The thing to do was to fight. People fought all the time. Fist fights everywhere, all the time, every day.
Just on the playground?
Yeah, all the time.
Is that why you're wearing the wrap on your hand right now?
No, just so I don't sweat into my pickup. But it's interesting you mentioned, one of the things that happened during that time was like a couple of older kids broke my arm and did it on purpose.
Yeah.
And nobody did anything. Nobody did anything. It was like walk it off. Like
really, right?
Yeah, like I was with a cast in school like the next day. Nobody said a word.
Sounds very like Boston in the 70s.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think
it was similar blue collar working.
I think it was a 70s, 80s thing.
Yeah,
that was like the last wave of World War II post suburban trauma. Right. Washed up on the shores with a lot of drugs in 1984,
That's a very good line you just said. Yeah. It's a great picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, because after World War II, the vets went to the suburbs and had these families, right? Yeah. But they didn't know what therapy was. They were all shell-shocked and,
modeling
and alcoholism and whatever else, just locked away in this new thing, which was a suburb, right? Used to be you could hear your neighbors fighting. Right. But in the suburbs, you could lock the door and draw the curtains and nobody knew,
Yeah.
Do you think
makes a lot of sense?
So do you think that so growing up like that, right? So you had that as a thing, and then all of a sudden now you get sent, to the boys' school kind of thing. Do you think you carried that into your 20s with like a little bit of just a
I thought everybody did fistfights to resolve conflict. Well. I was like that. That's where this goes. You don't like my voice on my record? I guess we're gonna fight.
Wow. Do you not do that anymore?
No. I mean, it was like the worldview was wrong.
Yeah,
it was incorrect. It was cloistered in a place that was exceptionally violent. And the other thing is, Long Island is a terminus, right? nobody ever goes through Long Island to get to anywhere. They talk about the Hamptons, but I lived on the other side. You know, there's nowhere to go through Northport to get to. You know, it was, that's you know, a vacation getaway for millionaires. But there were people, and there still are people on Long Island who don't and have never gone to New York City. They don't see the bigger world. Right. You know, and they're not fond of their neighbors necessarily. You know, like it's
well, you're afraid you're gonna get beat up, right? Sitting in your home.
I think it's changed.
It's not like that anymore. You can come out now.
Yeah, I think it has changed quite a bit.
Right.
I have seen it be a much nicer place.
Gotcha. Do you still have a family there? If it house all that
well,
stuff?
No, they're all gone now. We have some family out there. Some cousins.
Gotcha. It's interesting to go back. You know, they say you can't go home, but certainly I don't know if
you can.
necessarily wanted to there.
You can. It can't go back to the place where 1984, the summer of 1984, with my tape case full of AC/DC, that place is gone.
Yeah.
That's funny that music at that time was the scapegoat for all of this behavior, especially when, you know, that kid was caught.
Yeah.
And they think that's what's driving you, when in reality, music was probably like your therapy. You know, it was an outlet for people.
For me, playing guitar was a control mechanism.
Yeah.
If you're out on the street getting stopped, the first thing I ever did in front of a crowd was get beat up.
You can only go up from there.
Yeah, right. So like the control feature of playing guitar is just like, oh, I got to do this in front of people.
Yeah.
Well, then you get good at it, right?
Yeah.
You have to get really good at it. It's almost like learning how to fight, right? You have to get really good at it if you're going to go do this in front of people again. You know? And fights were always in front of other people, boy. There was always a crowd, you know.
We circle up, right?
Yeah.
And like nobody's jumping in to be like, we should stop this.
Yeah. No. In fact, back then, if you were a loser, quote unquote, if people called you that, it was because
I think losers the nicest word to
fights
use
in front of people.
Right.
They knew it for a fact. You know, they weren't speculating.
Right.
So, you know, it was like that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Well, it was the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 80s in a sheltered,
in a place where the parents were checked out.
Yeah.
And there's lots of drugs.
So I don't want to keep going over it, but how about just the glossy version of you were angry, punchy, writing out these songs? Like, what were you even writing about for that first record? And then what changed when you're writing on the second record?
It was silly sort of revenge poetry based. Who's the guy who wrote The Night I Fucked My Alarm Clock? What's his name? He's a sort of terrible misogynistic poet who everyone gets into. Charles Bukowski.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say that.
And, I did that book went around my high school. I had read some of those poems and was shaped by that a little bit.
Cool.
In my sharper edges, you know.
Yeah. You look at it and say, well, you can write like this. I can write that.
Somebody is writing.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
I wasn't out to be a misogynist. I didn't glean that from him. I gleaned sort of the hard sharpness of what he was saying, words being sharp.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where it came from.
So, now that I'm older, I'm actually listening to it with a closer ear. What's the name of the first song on the record?
Truffles.
Yes.
Okay, so that's just a litany of shit kids actually used to say to each other in my high school on the daily.
When your pencil neck breaks, when your bird chest caves in.
Yep. Yeah, you could not have a day at school where somebody didn't say to somebody else, "I'll rip your fucking head off." You know, like it was like that. It was like a lot of tough talk.
You're like, all right, well, I would like I'll have a sloppy Joe, ma'am. Thank you very much.
And mom disses were elevated.
Yeah, sure.
Terrible talk. I tell everybody that that's a terrible song now. And it is. Like, it's a piece of shit. But it's what happened.
Right.
You know? It's like you write what you know.
Right.
And I knew all those phrases because they were beaten into me for years.
Right. Well, that's about like it's sort of refined but not unfiltered. It's just kind of like, all right, here it is, you know?
Yeah. Be honest. Okay.
Yeah.
This is where I came from.
So how did you take that kind of rage and turn it into like really catchy pop songs?
Well, I like catchy pop songs.
Yeah.
Right? And there's always that feeling of like elevation from your status quo that you get from like, listening to Journey, like Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah.
Like, from my version of that was The Spirit of Radio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure. You can have this sort of like transcendent, imaginative moment in music, right? Where you maybe can believe for a second that you can get out of your thing that you're in.
Right.
Whether
there's
it's
something bigger,
stuck on Long Island, or you can go have a better life or something like that, right?
Sure.
It triggers this synesthesia where you're seeing sounds and you're hearing tastes and things like that. And you can kind of get into that headspace. So, and my favorite versions of those moments were brought to me by pop songs. Yeah. Big fuck off pop songs that were like, just, you can hate on pop all you want. I know you're singing this at night when you go home. I know,
of course.
You know. So
I used to think it was too cool when I was little, but now like I just love and embrace all of it.
Right. And also metal and heavier music was groove for me, was badassness. Same thing I feel when I hear Bootsy Collins play is the same feeling I get when I hear Creeping Death by Metallica.
Such a good song.
Yeah, like these are moments of like transcendent like prowess and musical prowess and grace and you know, ninja execution of notes, you know.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, that tension and that sharpness aligns with anger in ways that can be positive and negative, I think, you know. I've seen people who don't know how to slam dance and they hurt other people.
You're not doing it right. That's not the point, dude.
It's not why we're here. But but you know what I'm saying.
I do. So on that positive and negative, you sing very high.
Yeah.
You don't sound like you have a super high voice.
Oh, yeah.
How did you decide?
I mean, at what point were you comfortable singing that high in front of people?
Well,
because that could go either way.
It sounds great. Too.
So
it does sound
this
great.
ties back to the violent moments as well, but in this other kind of way, right? And you've been in a physical fight with somebody before.
Sure.
You lose. Did you lose the fight?
I lost. Yeah.
Okay. When you know you're going to lose, right?
Yeah.
You kind of want to get it over with as fast as you can.
Please.
So if there's a taunt happening, you're going to say the most fucking offensive, the bully's going to hit you as hard as he can, as fast as he can, right?
That was not my
That was my move. That was my move.
Right. Go out big.
Like, let me end this quick.
Every once in a blue moon, you caught him off his guard because, like, you know, they're not ready for that.
Yeah.
And there was a ton of homophobia. You know, I had a very high voice when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I started singing along to Cyndi Lauper and Bon Scott before my voice changed.
Right.
So I kind of got where that physicality is and would taunt bullies with that voice.
Are you going to beat the shit out of me now? Like, oh, you're really tough? Yeah. You know?
Like, and it worked.
Yeah.
I either got the ass kicking of my life or or they swung and missed because they were like extra pissed.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
it's funny. You got to throw a little bit of that like grungy Brooklyn on it. You got Cyndi Lauper right there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it's true.
Exactly. But the point is only that like when I went to face the fear of doing this in front of people, I went as high as I could. I went as high as I could possibly go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was smart because maybe I'll be 60 years old. I won't be able to do it. You know, I have to do a lot of exercises to make it happen now.
I was going to ask. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
how do you...
lots of warm ups. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm going to have a shitty show because I'm not going to sing.
No.
But Gabrielle, my partner, and she's in the band as well. She's opening up tonight and on the rest of the tour. She's basically my vocal coach, and she's done a lot of lessons, a lot of hard lessons, and had vocal injuries. And she's been singing sort of like Mariah Carey style since she was a little kid too.
Oh, wow.
So we work on it together. Exercise wise,
that's
and
great.
I can still do my highest note is a high A.
It's higher than anything I'm gonna hit in my lifetime.
And I have to throw my head back and stretch stretch Armstrong to do it.
I was going to say the same. So I just came across the Time Stand Still cover you guys did because I love that song. It's like one of my. I was like, they're not doing Rush on it. It's like, oh my god, that's such a great song.
It's a beautiful song.
But that gets really high and really big up there.
Yeah, the
at
freeze
the end,
note, the word freeze.
Summer's going fast.
Yes. So they make fun. The band makes fun of me on that because I warm it up when we're gonna do it. And I'm walking around going freeze, 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 and everyone just freeze. Fucking, you know, they won't shut up.
That's a great song. But Geddy Lee too. That's another one, man. He's like because when you get up there too, now you're like, all right, now I got to hit those 70s records. Try to hit it.
Just like screeching way up behind his eyeballs.
God.
It's so good.
I feel like somebody's like, that's not sustainable. He's like, watch me.
Just
watch me.
He did it all the way. Yeah, he did it all the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I heard that cover and I was like, that's right after Neil Peart died, I think, right?
Yeah.
It was like that. Yeah. So
I got to give that a listen. I was really jamming out earlier today to what's the cover on your first album?
A Little Respect.
Yes.
How did you decide on? Yeah. So now having talked to you, when I was looking at it in the ethos, I'm like, Erasure. If I was going to pick a band that you guys would cover, I would not have said cool, Erasure. And it's so cool. And it's great.
There was a radio station on Long Island called WDRE. It was alternately known as WLIR. Went back and forth between the two names. And during my early first half of high school, they were playing all of the Britpop stuff that was happening. The Smiths, the Stone Roses, Ned's Atomic Dustbin, The Cure, Ride, Echo Belly, all that really cool stuff. And so that My Bloody Valentine. So that sort of world of where Erasure was Erasure was the sort of most refined songwriter duo of that era, I think. Because those Erasure songs are crafted like timeless crooner ballads, you know, but they're dance pop.
Right. It comes across
really good dance pop, like, you know, crooner ballads, which is, I don't think anybody really does that. They're the only game in town with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The Scissor Sisters do it a little bit.
I haven't listened to them in a while.
Yeah, they're really cool at that.
Maybe I can give them a chance again.
Yeah, and I think Neon Trees take a note from that.
I do like them.
Yep. 1975 has a little bit of that feeling in it, but nobody did it like Erasure. And those two songs, Chains of Love and A Little Respect, were on the radio all the time, and I love them. I love those two tracks.
Yeah.
And I figured out how to play A Little Respect on the guitar in high school just on a whim. It's not really a guitar song. It feels more like a keyboard
song.
Right, but I knew it on guitar. So
translates well.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a really well-written song. That's why. It's just perfectly crafted. It doesn't matter. You could play it on a kazoo and it'll still kick ass.
I forgot about Ned's Atomic Dustbin.
Yeah,
check out Gray Matter.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember that as a
kid. Oh my God.
So where's your songwriting stand now? Like,
I'm trying to write jazz.
Really?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if you're being serious.
No, I'm being serious.
That's
being
cool.
dead serious.
Yeah.
You know who Carl Thompson is?
No.
Bass luthier. He, Primus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
The guy who makes Les Claypool's bass is a guy named Carl Thompson.
Okay.
And we met him in 2006. He made us a pair of basses in Brooklyn. It's his little shop.
Stand-up bass?
No, although I think he does some of that, but he mostly makes the ones you wear. Really big, gnarly ones that you wear. They look like they were made by Ents from Lord of the Rings. But he sat me down and he played me when we were talking about him building me a bass or two. He played me Somewhere Over the Rainbow on his fretless bass, and he sang it at the same time, and he changed keys on every phrase.
Oh my God.
And he wasn't even looking on a fretless bass. And I realized that I don't know music like that. Like I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So for the winter of 2015, I sat down and tried to write like a proper jazz ballad pop from the Somewhere Over the Rainbow era, not like experimental fusion jazz, but when jazz was pop.
Yeah.
And I came up with a song called Lullaby, and we made it this sort of like stoner rock psychedelic thing. The recorded version is on streaming right now, but we play it acoustic and it comes off like it's a jazz ballad. It's really weird.
That's cool.
Yeah. But I, for whatever reason, thought it's not real unless you can make it a stoner rock record out of it. Make it really like thick and distorted and gnarly.
Put it out there, right? With some sound, like layering.
Yeah, it's so
like
thick.
Atmosphere.
Nasty. Yeah. But the clean version is jazz. And I've been in that mode trying to figure out some Willie Nelson songs that are very jazzed up. And I can't read music. I have this reading disability because I have a rotated nystagmus. I lose my place when I'm reading all the time.
Okay.
Like once every 3 sentences, I lose my spot. And if I tried to read music, it would be like I'm just better off learning it,
Right.
memorizing it.
Wow.
So that's how I'm doing it. I'm like memorization jazz learning, which is.
Did you always have that? I'm sure.
No, man.
Oh, okay.
I was power chord dude.
Yeah.
Couldn't have played anything remotely like Lullaby when we made the first record. I wasn't anywhere near that level.
Oh,
that's cool though. It's cool to grow.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Did you always have the eye thing? Like, was that like growing up? I'm sure that didn't help.
I was undiagnosed until I was in college.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So before it was too late.
Again, growing up in the 80s, you have this sort of thing going on that knows, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever,
Somebody go beat him up. Go beat him up more.
He gets really wicked headaches when he reads.
Oh God.
Must be a wimp.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Oh God.
So you're writing a jazz record.
Sort
or
of.
You're going to turn it into a heavy psychedelic.
Yeah. At the same time, these two worlds are kind of converging. Like the heaviest sort of crunchy metal. Like Queens of the Stone Age does a good job at this kind of stuff. Like he's like a crooner
kind
guy.
of have that.
He really is. He's like a sneaky crooner.
Yeah, sneaky crooner. Yeah. Yeah, Josh. I admire him a lot. He's a really good songwriter.
Yeah, I agree.
Great guitar player.
Yeah.
Nobody plays guitar like that guy.
Uh-huh.
So cool.
Yeah.
But and the production on those records is really sick,
Yeah, I agree.
But like just trying to figure out if like pop jazz can become metal like total metal. Like,
put it in there.
Why not?
See if it works,
That's cool.
I mean, it can't be any harder than screeching in front of a bunch of people who are going to beat you up.
Right. It's not going to be that hard. And that's the other thing is like if you can merge these two worlds in a pop sensibility, because jazz, like I said, jazz was once popular music.
Sure. Yeah.
3-minute, 4-minute songs that were just different jazz ballad standards, So maybe it can be again. I don't know.
Yeah. I have a question. The Christmas EP that we didn't know we needed, but we did. Because it's great. It's really great. How did that come about? How did you
talked
decide?
about trying to do something for Christmas for such a long time and never could pull it together.
Really?
Because timing and budgets. We're an independent band. You're going to be able to record like a Christmas album has to be recorded in the middle of the year, right?
Yeah.
Right smack in the middle of like your touring season,
right?
Like July,
sure,
June, July. So it was almost impossible to pull it off. And we finally had a little window. And then Gabrielle had her song, Feels Like Christmas. Mm-hmm. And Joey, our other backing vocalist, had just done a series called The 12 Months of Christmas, where she did a Christmas song every month.
Oh, wow.
And so she had this other one that she was working on as part of that series, I think, called You Make Me Believe in Christmas. And then I was doing a quartet version of the first album, string quartet version of our first album for release. And the Dirtbag one came out really good because my friend Scrap Livingston, Andrew Livingston, his nickname is Scrap.
Yeah.
He's a cellist, and he arranged it for me. And got this band called The Rhythm Method to come in, this all-girl string quartet. And they killed
That's a good name.
They killed it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, they're awesome.
That's fantastic.
And they totally murdered the take in my living room in an afternoon.
Oh my god!
So we suddenly had 4 songs for Christmas.
Okay.
And kind of looked around and said, "Oh, Gabrielle, by the way, wrote the lyrics for Christmas Dirtbag."
Oh yeah, I was going to ask because I love the lyrics. B, I love that they are earnest. Like it goes through and it's totally bought in. It feels great.
I was too close. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I have no idea how to turn this into a Christmas song. Can you just take 24 hours and do it? And she came back in like 8 hours and she's like, the first word in the song is Noel, you idiot. Like that's Christmas.
A good way.
Like that's literally
that's
Christmas.
Really
like I was like, I had no idea.
You're like, sorry.
So she
that's
nailed
your
it.
blinders, right? That's your blinders. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
That Noel is a girl.
Yeah. So the songs just came together that way very quickly. And then I wrote a fifth, which was I have had these feelings before, like a little bit like sitting at Christmas time, kind of like just relaxing for that final moment where everyone's kind of gone and you're just chilling in front of the tree or something like that. And you realize like there's like a lot of homeless people out there right now who don't have shit. And there's people at the border whose families have just been separated. And here I am.
Just enjoying.
Just doing my
pile of gifts and
American thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Privileged as shit.
That's mean Christmas.
Right. That's why I wrote Mean Christmas.
Yeah. It hits like because I don't think you have a lot of political kind of things in that, but it was really well done and caught me off guard in that way, which is cool.
I think politics and music makes sense if it's personalized.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's just my feeling. You don't tell Rage Against the Machine that. They're fucking better at that than anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I had a moment at a Christmas party where we were doing karaoke and somebody put on Band-Aid, do they know it's Christmas time? Yeah. And so like a whole group of people up there, and I was one of them, like singing and laughing. And I'm like, this feels really tone deaf actually, as a group of people doing karaoke, and
nobody remembers what that was about.
Right. I'm like, as you're reading I'm like, what are we doing? This feels like I said, so.
There won't be snow in Africa this Christmas time.
Right. Do they know it's Christmas? Right. The only...
Those are the lyrics. That's the lyric.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about the Ethiopian.
I'm Jewish. I don't know these songs.
Oh my gosh. Get out of here.
The Ethiopian.
Get out of here.
Famine.
The only gift they'll get this year is life.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all right. It's heavy stuff.
It's heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. Heavy stuff. But so I thought the Christmas EP was great.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to keep you too long because I'm sure you have more stuff to get ready. Yeah. But one last question then. Yep. We usually add a travel aspect.
Okay.
So we always say, where do you call home? And if you were to take someone out, if you were to go back there for a day, run through your stomping grounds or take someone out to like really show off, where would you go and what would you do?
Is it fancy or is it real?
Real.
Okay. Then I would go, I live in the Bronx and I would take them to Sam's Pizza at 231st Street and Broadway.
What kind of pizza?
Oh, okay, here we go. You got to start with a plain, just a standard slice. Because you got to get the regular New York slice in you so you understand something you don't know shit about pizza.
Yeah. Right.
Right? Fold it. If I see a fork, I'm going home.
Oh, my God.
Get out of here with a fork.
Get out with your fork forever. I don't want to hear about it. I don't care how sloppy it is.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Right.
And then I would say pause on that first slice. You want another one? Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll try an anchovy slice.
Ooh. Yes.
Really?
I'm all in on the anchovy slice.
Get the hell out of here. Really?
It's delicious.
It's delicious. It's old man delicious.
Yeah. But again,
Salty,
I'm Jewish and I grew up eating smoked fish.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm Jewish by genealogy, but I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
And we eat salty fish too.
It's great.
It should be on a t-shirt. Catholics, we're down with salty fish too. Need more? Jesus. Sorry, that's anyway. So we get pizza. What are we doing after that?
Yeah. After that, we're probably going to go maybe fish for striped bass in the Hudson River.
Okay. That's cool.
That's a fun adventure.
I was going to say, is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you want, the trappings of New York City, that's like easy. Just, jump on a subway and head downtown and do anything. Go see a rock show that you weren't planning on seeing.
What part of town are you hanging out in?
Like random New Year's Eve style hangout in?
Sure. Like what's most comfortable? You're going to be on foot.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, I love Brooklyn.
Yeah. I love the Bronx. And we can actually take you to Arthur Avenue and walk around Arthur Avenue where all the Italian food is.
Mm.
That's the real deal. You get a cannoli over there and you'll never eat another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And from anywhere else if you can't get that one, because you realize that you've never had one before. Nice. It's like that.
Everything else is just a cannoli and name.
Everything else is just like a facsimile of a bad copy of a not cannoli.
Nice.
Cool. But fishing, pizza, you're going out and seeing some music, did you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your favorite place? Like pop in? Any places that you're like?
Mercury Lounge is still rocks. So you can still catch a really like blow your mind, amazing moment down there. Rockwood Music Hall is cool for that. There are new and awesome places in Brooklyn popping up. Elsewhere is one of them. Elsewhere is cool. If you can find out where the kids are having the illegal shows, that's the shit.
Gotta know somebody.
That'll be really cool.
Yeah, and some warehouses and
yeah. You can mess around and catch lightning bolt playing under a bridge somewhere, like that would be a New York City moment.
That's cool.
All right. That sounds like a good time. I don't need to hold you up in this room anymore.
Yeah.
This has been a delight. Thanks for the stories.
It's so great.
I appreciate it.
It's been really,
that was
fun.
fun.
I
You
hope
guys are fun.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
Very cool. Have a great show tonight.
Cheers.